Hi guys, my name is Crystal and welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome old subscribers, welcome new. I'm a female from Rochester in Kent, which is a historic place with a nice cathedral and a castle and a Dickensian sort of road, Rochester High Street, where the Sweeps Festival takes place. Right, so I'm in my flat. Alexa, good morning.
Good morning, and a happy birthday to the YMCA, formed on this day in 1844. To this day, you can get yourself clean, you can have a good meal, you can do whatever you feel.
Alexa, what's the time, please?
The time is 8:35 a.m.
Alexa, what's the date today?
It's Tuesday the 6th of June.
Alexa, what's the weather like?
Right now in Rochester, it's 12 degrees Celsius with mostly cloudy skies. Today's forecast has intermittent clouds, with a high of 17 degrees and a low of 9 degrees.
And Alexa, what's the weather like? Alexa, can you tell me a joke? Alexa, can you tell me a joke?
What do you get when you cross a giraffe with a hedgehog? A 6-foot toothbrush.
Okay, so it is Tuesday. My mum arranged for me to go up there Tuesday, but in fact I went up to my mum's yesterday instead. Then people don't know where you're going, do they? They don't. The stupid things that I see don't happen. I just went up really quietly and came back quietly yesterday evening. I'm not feeling too happy. I want to be happy. There's no sun outside. It's dull and dreary. As I said, I live in Rochester in a flat by myself. There is Max, and my cat has gone onto the balcony. My cat has gone onto the balcony. There she is, hiding underneath the mops. And there's Max. And there's my plant pots. Tuesday morning. So I don't have a garden, I have a balcony. This is Corey's Road, Rochester. The builders are building right up the top. Right, Max, come in. So we try and go on to what happened yesterday. So my mum called. I phoned my mother back and I said I'd rather go up today than tomorrow, Mum. My mum said to me she didn't have any dog food, any cat food or any shopping, and I thought that's great because I don't want to carry heavy loads back. So a taxi arrives around 10 to 12 yesterday afternoon outside the block of flats, and I get into it in the back seat. The driver just said a couple of words and he drove me up to my mother's at Durrell Gardens, and he drove right outside my mum's door. My mum was coming out and my mum paid the taxi driver. She was wearing a pink low-cut top, pink very low-cut top, and a pair of jeans. And my mum paid the driver, told me to wait outside for her. We walked into her flat together. I sat down. There was a few tiny bits on the table, like a bag of crisps, some yuzu drinks, some hard-boiled sweets, and the television was already on, like someone had been watching it already. Normally the television is turned off. Max, sorry. Come on, in. It's got noisy outside and Max likes to investigate, so I've shut the door. Every time dogs hear a noise they bark, don't they? Now he's going to sit all over me. Right. So I was talking to my mum and everything was okay. Sue had been in to see my mother beforehand, as she always does. My mum says she comes in to see her about 10 o'clock now. So Sue had already been in, her neighbour, to see how my mum was. Nobody comes in to see how I am, because I'm a lot younger than my mum. I'm 22 years younger than my mother. So everything was going okay, going fine. I brought my mum up some trainers, and I bought my mum up a bottle of perfume. Because my mum keeps giving me stuff, so I gave my mum a nice bottle of Avon perfume, and I was being nice to my mother. I was being nice. My mum was okay with me, but I did feel that she wanted to keep trying to make me go. When I lived at Victoria Road in Chatham, when I first came down from Gloucestershire, my mum used to sit on the stairs and I used to sit in the front living room, and she would talk about her neighbours, Julie and Paul Preston, and she would talk about a mental health worker. And sometimes when I got overstressed with my mum keep talking, I used to go outside. I used to walk down Victoria Road, right underneath the Luton Arches, and I used to walk into Chatham and go into the library, go to the shops and walk around. But you've got to remember that I didn't leave my kids voluntarily from Gloucestershire. I was forced to leave my flat. I felt I was being forced out of my flat and forced away from my children to come and live with my mum and dad. Whereupon my dad physically abused me. Okay, so I would wander off into town. I was missing my kids. I would even buy things for my youngest child, thinking I would get him back. So my mum would start sitting on the stairs, talking and talking and talking and talking, and I felt that I had to go outside, and then I would get into trouble outside because I was missing my children. I wanted to be with my family. I didn't intend to stay in Chatham and Rochester. I intended to go back to my child. But things happened. My flat got repossessed and things happened, and I stayed down here where my father was abusing me. And I told the police. I told them several times. And, now someone's saying all those police were actors. Actors! They weren't real police at all. I have spent over 12 years in Medway away from my children. When I first lost my son, he was 2.5. I last saw him at 5 years old. He's now 18 in December. So all this bullshit bollocks, all this setup, this supposedly nice new flat, is all away from my family, which I was with in Gloucester. So I'm here on my own without my kids and my family. And the pretense is still going on. Covering up what Derek did is still going on. Even though he died 2 years ago, I've got to live by myself, maybe forever, to cover up what someone did to me, and it's just not fair. And my children are with my ex-husband. My ex-husband. So I feel the one is still being used as a weapon against me. He's still visiting my ex-husband. And he's not even my ex-husband's child. But I gave birth to him, but he doesn't come down and see me. He doesn't write to me. He doesn't send me birthday cards, even when I send him ones. And it's just not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. And I find out things and it makes me depressed. It makes me unhappy. Because I thought I fought for my children and I did it for nothing. When someone says they were all actors, I was taken from my children and abused for over 3 or 4 years. And the police let them get away with it. Of course I'm going to get depressed, get angry. And you want me to dance around in the shops, take all this abuse and bullying when I didn't do a thing. I was the one that rang the police to get protection for myself. And all the perpetrators, they're laughing their heads off. They've got away with it. Somehow they were all actors. They weren't real police at all, or solicitors, or judges. And of course I'm going to be angry and upset. So I sit round with my mum, my mother, and think she's the only solitary person in my life. I should be happy with my mother and nobody else. Right? It's still happening. It's still going on. It won't stop. So I sat down. I'm still missing my children, even though they're grown up. I miss my daughter. I've missed my youngest child going to school, going to nursery, and my mum wants to be the main element in my life, my mother. So I did something yesterday. I did something I've never done before, right? And yes, she has made my life only my mother in it. I've lost my dad now. My dad's gone, my sister's gone, I've got no brother, all my kids are miles away. I don't see my children anymore, not one of them. And I said something to my mother yesterday. I said, why do you keep ringing me 4 to 6 times a day? Why do you do it? I love you, Ginestra. You told me that you get depressed and lonely, and I ring to make sure you're okay. I said, do you realise every time you ring me, some incident happens? I said, it might, and I'm not blaming you. I said, but every time you ring me, I've had an incident happen, either inside or outside. I said, could you do me a favour? I said, can you stop ringing me? Can you stop ringing me? I said, it stresses me out. I said, look, once a day, once a week, but not 4 to 6 times a day. It's not really necessary. And she did obey my wishes. Last night she didn't call me after I went home in the taxi. She didn't. So she didn't call me yesterday afternoon and she didn't call me yesterday evening. So let's see how this progresses and see if I get better. But she was the only one in my life. She was making herself the only one in my life, right? And now I've got to try and rebuild relationships with other people because it's all been destroyed since my dad did those things to me and my children were given